Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Studio 7 in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Roger Chang, the show's producer.
And joining us today is Tasia Custode, host of the Talk Techie to Me podcast and friend of the show. Hi, Tasia.
Hi, guys.
Good to have you
Tasia.
back.
Thanks for having me again. I was, wondering if it was something I said. It's March.
The time does fly by. When was the last time you were on?
Last year, okay? That's all I remember.
It was
I think
2024.
it was December.
It was December.
It was late December, but
It's
still.
our quarterly
yes.
appearance by
Yeah,
Tasia.
let's not let this happen again. All right?
Agreed. Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by you listening right now. Thanks to all of you, including Pat, Mike Cortez, Erwin Stour, and Royce Fujitani.
Hey.
Patrons.
Love the patrons. Welcome to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss all the tech news that we can fit into an hour to help us all understand it a little bit better. So, Tasia, what have you been up to since we saw you last?
Well, I went home to cold Canada for Christmas,
Okay.
and now I'm back in the sun. I wish I had a more exciting life to tell you about.
And you slept in between? Is that...
Ish. Oh, I started taking magnesium to sleep better because I'm that age
yeah.
now.
That is the thing. Everybody's on the magnesium train these days.
Huh.
Really?
I wonder if that
Does
would
it
help
work?
me.
Sleep?
Guys, I don't know. The
this.
verdict's still out. I'm on
Yeah.
like day 5, so I really couldn't tell you.
I need to, I wake up at 3 now for some reason in the morning.
See,
I
it
just wake
starts
up-
happening, Roger.
Yeah.
Well, the last time it was an earthquake, but it is
Oh.
I wake up at 4 and take my medicine.
Perfect.
That's,
Aren't we
that's
just
how
a bunch
that's
of
what
lively?
Yeah. And
what age
Tasia,
I-
you thought you had a boring life. No, we're all
Look at
pretty
us.
interesting here. We're pretty
What
interesting.
supplements is everybody on?
Well, I stopped taking melatonin. It was just too much.
CoQ10.
All right. Well, there is actually tech news to get to. Quite a bit,
There is.
actually. It's been a fun day of tech news for anybody keeping score. So let's go ahead and get into the quick hits.
Apple refreshed the specs of its mid-range iPad Air tablet, so now it has the M3 chip. That's a generation behind the latest chip, but it's still current, and a significant upgrade from the M1 powered Air that was out before. Also now supports Apple Intelligence because the M3 chip has the MPU. The 11-inch iPad Air is $599, 13 inches, $799. You can pre-order them right now if you want. They'll start shipping on March 12th.
Waymo and Uber launched a joint robotaxi service in Austin, Texas, operating within 37 square miles. This was expected, but the Waymo on Uber offering lets Uber users either select a Waymo robotaxi or a human-driven car for the same price. The launch comes just ahead of Austin's annual South by Southwest conference, so they're probably going to get a lot of data that weekend.
Google is updating Google Play on Android to enhance app widget discoverability. Developers have been requesting that. Changes include a widget search filter, badges on app detail pages, and a dedicated editorial page. Another Google widget news, the Gemini app for iPhone got an update with 6 different lock screen widgets and control center shortcuts. That makes it easier to access things like voice prompts, image sharing, and of course the in-app camera.
Microsoft is expanding support for DeepSeek AI models on Copilot PCs, adding DeepSeek R1 Distill Qwen 7B and 14B. Both models run locally on NPUs. While they're slower than what a cloud-based AI might do, it does highlight the benefit of some sort of hybrid form of cloud and edge computing.
Polsa, the Polish space agency, went offline after an attack forced it to disconnect from the internet over the weekend to secure its systems. Authorities are investigating the breach with support from Poland's cybersecurity teams, while staff rely on phones after the attackers compromised Polsa's email system. The agency is working to restore operations and identify who the attackers were.
TSMC announced an additional $100 billion investment over the next 4 years to expand advanced semiconductor manufacturing in the United States. What started as a $40 billion investment in Arizona increased to $65 billion after TSMC became a CHIPS Act recipient. The company now calls the $165 billion total investment the largest single foreign direct investment in U.S. history. All right, Tom. Google's made quite a few announcements this week at Mobile World Congress. So what caught your eye?
Yeah, one of the trends at Mobile World Congress this year is using generative models for user safety, like deepfake detection and stuff like that. I talked to Jason Howell a little bit about that. He's at Mobile World Congress. That's in our Daily Tech News Show briefing. Google Messages is adding a scam detection tool of its own for Android users. Messages will monitor your text messages, SMS, MMS, RCS, all of them, and look for patterns. So in the past, it would block just based on, oh, this phone number is on a list. Now it will watch the conversation on device. This is not going to Google Cloud. And if it sees a pattern that is similar to patterns associated with scams, it'll throw up a warning that says, hey, you might be involved in a scam conversation. And then it's up to you what you do with that. Canada, the UK, and the US are getting this first. It is only available in English, but more countries and more languages are on the way. I don't know how useful this is. I guess we'll have to see it in action, but I think that every phone call I get says it's a likely scam these days. So I'm starting to wonder if if I get a text message from something I don't know, from some number I don't know, it's just going to say it's a scam, right? I mean, do y'all think this is useful?
I mean, at one time I would get, not often, but some years ago, you would get a text or an email or some sort of correspondence from something that was legitimate but seemed a little fishy. And so it's sort of like, okay, you gotta, sniff it out, figure out oh, is this a friend of a friend? And it just sounds weird type thing. I mean, now I get, I couldn't even tell you how many spam texts on a daily basis. And
Hi, is this Mary?
I
Yes.
say
That kind of stuff,
report junk and delete every time, and every so often I will write back because I'm bored and I'm a petty person, and just make everything worse for myself. But yeah, they're not really good at tricking you. But maybe there's somebody out there who's like, well, I got tricked.
I mean, I see it useful for someone, say, in my dad's age range, which is like 80 plus. And I simply say that because there's a lot of things that he is not familiar with that he will see and just sort of assume instead of having something tell him. And this is where the scam calls actually really come in to play when you get it on the notification on your phone. He sees it. It's like, Roger, it says a scam call, so it's probably just a scam. So if you see that, don't answer the phone. I mean, it seems sort of silly, but it's one of those things that I need to blatantly explain to him.
And
remind him because, he gets fooled when he sees an important looking manila folder in the mail that says open right away, government, because he's at that age where they get scammed a lot. And I told him to cancel that water appointment because the person he called up was not from the city government, but instead a water, filtration installer who had a free consultation to come by. It's
as we all get older, the critical faculties decline, and it becomes harder for us to tell when something isn't a scam. And I think the other thing that goes along is things that used to be indicative as a shortcut of legitimacy become easier to imitate. So like the manila folders, back in the 1960s, nobody sent manila folder looking things through the mail. So if you got one, you're like, oh, what's this? Now, of course, everybody does it. There's going to be something like that for us where we're like, no, that only, that we were just talking before the show about the PayPal thing where they're using an injection through PayPal's system so a legitimate looking email shows up from PayPal. That's the kind of thing, that I will get fooled by in the future because my critical faculties will get lower. And I'm like, well, but it comes from PayPal, and it's a new way of doing it.
And for somebody, even at any age, you're going fast, you're going through a bunch of emails, you use PayPal.
Yeah.
So you expect occasional correspondence, from the company to you, and that's where that can get tricky.
And my current shortcut is, did it actually come from PayPal? Oh no, it came from paypal.mxczlchew.hotmail.com, right? But this one actually comes from PayPal because they're using PayPal's own mail system to inject something into it. So it looks like it. So it actually, the email is sent through PayPal servers, but they're hiding the part of the mail that PayPal would normally have wrapped around it with some clever code.
Tasia, have you ever fallen victim to a scam?
Not yet. Yet being the key word. But I think it's really helpful because it's not just the "Hey, are you married?" texts. And I feel like maybe because we're go, like you're saying, Sarah, and we have just access to so much information and everything all at once at our fingertips. But I'm finding I'm getting a lot of spam texts now that are really weird coincidences. Like I'll just have been, helping my mom on her PC try to set up like a fast pass to cross over into the States. And like a week later, I'm getting a text message about like some easy pass thing and I owe a toll. And I'm like, I know I don't travel on those toll roads. So like I knew that was a scam, but like I was, it's stuff like that where it's very easy to look at it on the surface. Or like when you guys get the ones, do you get the ones from the post office now? I get those all the time. That's like your delivery, whatever. And it wants you to click the link. And it's like, that's such an easy thing to fall for. So
especially if you're expecting a package.
Yes,
right.
which we all are all the time, expecting a package. It's a general state. So I tell everybody, like from my in-laws to my parents to my friends, I'm like, don't click anything. Like, and then I explain to them, it's okay if you open the text message, like your phone's not going to explode. Don't click on anything in the body of the text message if it's weird. So like my mom always just sends me screenshots now. What's this? Got this. And it's just an added filter. So I'd love for AI to be the filter, so I don't have to do it all the time. But it's just like that extra layer of protection. It's not going to stop it. We're still getting the annoying texts and calls.
The coincidence part of it is a really good point. Some years ago, we've probably all gotten this phone call at this point, but if you've got a US based phone number, it's the IRS and you owe back taxes, but now, you're going to jail because you haven't paid them type thing. And I know that sounds like that's the most ridiculous phone call ever. Right. Why would you believe them?
But it scares you. Yeah.
When it happened, and I knew that was a thing, because I had like a couple friends actually ping me like, is this legit? And I'm like, there's no way it's legit. But one day, and I was sort of having a particularly weird tax year. And so there was some kind of stuff I was going back and forth with the IRS about, which was, anxiety inducing. And so I got the phone call and I was like, oh no, what have I done? Did I do something wrong? Because they just timed it just right. Yes. So for a good 5 to 10 minutes, I was like, I'm going to jail. And then I was like, wait a second, the sheriff is coming to get me? No, he's not. That's so stupid.
And then, I do understand the concern about having false positives. For example, if it labels something a scam call, I'm putting in for a insurance claim, and I'm waiting to hear back from the person I'm dealing with, but the person's phone number and the phone number you call are two different phone numbers, and they're from two different regions, so both of them are flagged as scams. And the person emailed me, it's like, have you received my call? It's like, no. And then I realized because all of it's been flagged as potential scams.
Yeah.
So
we're having that problem with our dog boarder. We're going to be out of town and we're going to have Seven go stay at this place where he's been before and he loves it. And they have a new system. They're like, okay, we've text messaged you the confirmation. And we're like, we're not getting that text message. So it's getting blocked by some spam fraud protection thing because it's a new system they're setting up and they're trying to figure out how to get whitelisted to be like, no, we're real. We're not a scam. So it works both ways. I do think that these kinds of analyses from these new generative models is helpful because Bart Buchatz was saying this on the security check-in on NosillaCast this week. They are helping him secure systems more often than they are helping malicious people get through. And so he's like, I think these are a net positive. And this could be another example of that where you can allow more things through because it'll be able to detect the pattern and go, no, that's really something you probably should look skeptically at. Especially for those weird coincidences. Because The mail thing and the Easy Pass thing, those all work because they're sending them to millions of people. 99% of those people are like, I haven't driven on a toll road. I'm not expecting a package, but it hits enough people who just coincidentally are expecting a package that minute or just drove down that toll road that it can fool people into paying for something.
Yeah. Especially, I don't know, like imagine, it's the holidays, you're checking stuff on your phone while you're on the go, getting last minute errands done. And you're just sort of like, oh no, yeah, I should figure this out. What package is this? Was it like the really nice necklace I'm about to give my mom for, Christmas or that sort of thing? And so you get somebody in a vulnerable place, even if they're really savvy.
Totally.
I'd like to know where our reports go. Report spam. I'd like to know. I'd like to know what's happening with this information because I keep getting it.
I'm going to guess it's a recycle bin on some server, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, sometimes because I route everything from Gmail through Apple Mail when I'm on a certain computer, and it's set up well that way. But it's like on Gmail, if I get a spam email, it's sort of like you get like report spam or unsubscribe, and I'm like, unsubscribe, well, I think I'll just report spam. That's what it is. But then in Apple Mail it's like move to junk, and I'm like, okay, is anybody understanding that I did that except me?
Nope.
Or is it just now in my junk folder and nothing's changed?
Yeah, it does. It moves it to your junk folder, and it sends a ping to a list on an algorithm that says, here's 1 point towards this server being blocked in the future. The problem is the spammer doesn't ever use that server again, right? They just rotate through those things like crazy.
Right. Yeah, and if I felt like it worked better, I would get a lot less spam than I get now. I mean, my spam is off the charts. Thankfully, I don't think I'm paying anybody I shouldn't be paying right now. But we may have to all pay each other if we all play Monopoly together in the future. So this is a fun one. Hasbro, which makes the game, announced Monopoly App Banking. Yes, that's actually the name of the new version of Monopoly. This is not replacing Monopoly. This is just an offshoot version.
Yeah, there's like a million variants of Monopoly if people don't realize that these days.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played Monopoly since I was in grade school, so it's been a while. I was not aware that there are so many regional Monopoly versions, et cetera, et cetera. So this new version is still a board game, so you lay out the board, you got your, if you pick the little Scotty dog, you're still doing that. But it replaces the paper cash that you would use and having to select somebody playing the game as the banker who's handling money and, doling out the correct amount of money for people who win or lose, with a mobile app to manage all these transactions. So Hasbro says this is supposed to simplify gameplay, make it harder to cheat, and be more attractive to younger people. With the app tracking each player's money, each player's properties, and it's not available yet. It's launching in August for $25. The app part is free, so you buy the game. The app is free, but of course, everybody who's playing will have to have their own mobile device.
Yeah. Which these days is less likely
weird
to be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although kids, if you're playing with, 9 and 10-year-olds, they might not each have their own electronic device for an app. So I think it's weird that they're targeting this at kids. It's not weird at all that they would have a version of this where you can use an app. That makes sense. Like, I don't like to go to the bank myself anymore either. I like using the bank's app. Why would Monopoly be any different? A lot of people would like to play Monopoly, but it takes too long and it's too complicated. This makes it simpler. That all makes sense. But why the kid orientation to this? Because the other part of this is like, you're not doing Park Place and Boardwalk. You're doing kid-friendly locations, right?
I mean, I've got to assume that Hasbro says the kids, who are old enough but still young enough to play Monopoly, right? Like, you can be a little too young for Monopoly, but once you're in that age range, but you're at the younger range of that, you're never going to use cash. You never have and you never will. And so this just feels like, oh, okay, I get it. That's, I bought Park Place, which, by the way, in this version is not Park Place. It's Park Place and Boardwalk, which, they're the, in the traditional Monopoly versions, they're the cool ones to get. It's a spacecraft in the moon. So there are some other minor changes.
I mean,
And it just speaks to kids, I guess.
I'll be honest, Hasbro's sort of in a tight place in the market right now, and this is a grand way to introduce or at least sell the existing game without having to put all the other pieces that usually come with the board game. But also, I mean, I have to admit, a lot of my daughter's friends have access to a phone or a tablet that they own, like, or not own, but that's theirs.
But it's theirs, yeah.
And so I can totally see this as, at least maybe in some sort of survey, they know enough young people have their own device that this makes it a viable option to, like, hey, you spend $25, they got a game, they can do board games. You know, we get to save money because they're not printing out paper money. We don't have to do all the rest of it. If they included any kind of cool AR features, sort of like, you know, Pokemon Go, you put it over the board.
There are some mini games in the app. I don't know if they're AR though.
That would definitely, I think, would sizzle it up.
I also, you know, for anybody who cheats in Monopoly, I say to you, shame on you.
How do you cheat in Monopoly?
Because you steal money when
I
no
think
one's
it's
looking.
but now that's going to be harder.
Or as the banker, you're corrupt and you give somebody 200
but
instead of
like,
300.
aren't you supposed to lay out? Don't you lay out the money in front of the board for everyone to see? It's sort of like,
Well, sleight of hand, Roger. I mean, I know you're too honest to conceive that someone could ever try that, but
Oh, there's a whole bunch of folks who play Monopoly specifically to see how
To
much
cheat?
cheating you can get away with,
yeah,
because that's also a game in itself.
I guess
the game within the game.
They should have called it Land Baron.
Wasn't it originally called something like that? I feel like that was the original name of Monopoly was something like Real Estate Baron or something. But yeah, I think I get it now, which is our reaction is kind of skeptical of like, why does this have to have an app in here? I'm seeing people in the chat like, seems overly complicated to have to use your phone. That is the adult reaction. They know if they're gonna have a chance of getting an adult to play Monopoly at all, it's gonna be a board game enthusiast who wants it the old-fashioned way. So I get it now. You want to increase the number of children who play this, and so you create the children version with the app, like you were saying, you know, so because they're digital natives and they're used to that, and it makes more sense and it's faster. Because the rest of us old fogies will turn our nose up at the app version, even though it's faster and probably just as fun, if not more
Chad
fun.
is telling us that the original name of Monopoly was the Landlord's Game.
The Landlord game. Thank you. Yeah, I knew it was something like that.
Sounds like a really bad game show.
That doesn't sound like a fun game.
Yeah,
Landlord
hence
game.
the
I don't wanna
change of
play
the
that
name.
game.
And I will say this: tablets
avoid
and,
that
and
game.
tablets and their smaller analogs, smartphones, are sort of like what phones used to be for my generation, like younger. Like, oh, I have my own phone line. It is your connection to your friend group or whatever, and I'm trying to peel my kids off of it, but their eyeballs are glued to it. If they are allowed to 24/7, and you know, I can totally see this working out for them. If they did it, so
you're saying this is a good way to like split the difference of like, yeah, you could still use your device, but there's a physical real world aspect of it. Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't tried to integrate this with roadblocks in some way, and then they just put jump in with both feet.
Well, are you sure they haven't? Like, this isn't the only thing Monopoly's doing. I'm going to look that up because I bet it's true.
Also, side note, this is
Monopoly Roblox 2022 edition. It's been out
that's
for
why
3 years.
That's why it was swirling in my head. But I will say, when I first read this story, I read Hasbro, and I thought immediately as some variation of Tech Bro. I did not even think of the company when I first read that. It shows you how messed up my mind is.
when you read Hasbro announces Monopoly app banking,
Yeah,
you can be forgiven for being slightly thrown off.
So the SEC is involved in this somehow?
Are you a Hasbro?
I mean, so again, I haven't played Monopoly in a long time. I don't know if it was grade school, but it's been 25 years, if not more. And back in those days, people weren't all, halfway on their phones throughout dinner and everything that we all do now anyway. And so this, on the surface, it's like, oh, that's weird. That's not what Monopoly is supposed to be about. But it actually does make sense. Will speed up gameplay for sure, because nobody has to be the banker. It just, it's doing everything in the background for you. And it sort of feels more natural to the younger set.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's a pretty good idea. I don't know about changing Boardwalk to space.
That's
but
confusing.
That's
because it's the
something
kids
else.
version. That's not because
Yeah.
it's the app version. Yeah.
Kids will be like, "What's Boardwalk?"
Oh, it's that place we
where's
go
Park
to,
Place?
the Jersey Shore.
You know,
every summer.
outside. You know that spot.
Yeah. Oh, like the moon? Yeah, just put the moon
Just
on the
put the
board.
moon.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
actually love the fact that it's app banking though. Like that for the same reasons that I said earlier that I prefer to you bank on my app in real life. I would prefer to bank on my app in Monopoly. It's just more real life. It's like when they switched from coins to paper money in Monopoly. They were always banking.
It's like,
I was like, oh, you must be
So-
much older than me.
Yeah.
it's like, what
I don't
version
remember
was that?
So Tasia, I don't know if it was different for you growing up in Canada, but I remember going to Australia and I saw a Monopoly board game. And in the US, the Monopoly money's different colored. But in Australia, the money was all was a mono, like green color, because their currency is multicolored, like actual currency. And so it was kind of flipped the way we do it.
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of trippy, like, because when they do localized versions, they always take into account, customs and cultural identifiers. In Canada, was it the American version of Monopoly, or did you guys have like a spin on it?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was all colored, but I could be incorrect. Because I'm with Sarah. Like, I have not played Monopoly in... Like, I honestly don't even know how long. Which is why the play works so well here. Because, one, it's like, oh, buy another version. Even though you have, like, 10 versions sitting in a cupboard somewhere. But two, like, if Sarah and I go back to when we were kids... like, now... if I had the phone and my face was in my phone all the time, I don't want to play with my parents. But if they're like, oh, but it's integrated into your app and like you can still have your face on your phone, it's like, oh, okay, this is family time now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's
Unfortunately.
genius. Yeah. Well, folks, if you would like to talk about your favorite Monopoly experience or anything else, you can chat with us in our Discord. Do it right now. There's people in there chatting as we speak. You can go link a Discord account to your Patreon, patreon.com/DTNS.
This past weekend, NHL referees took to using the NHL Watch Comms app on Apple Watch for the first time in an outdoor game. We talked about this briefly last Friday. You might remember that. This is the app that is supposed to alert a game official when time starts ticking down to the end of a period via haptics, etc. Tasia, you are our resident hockey fan on the show today. Tom, I know you are too, but I think Tasia might take the cake on this one.
The stereotypes are true.
So let's talk more about how this works and how you think it's going to work.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one because this is like a partnership from like NHL and Presidio and Apple, and it's the WatchComms app, and it's right now being configured specifically for on ice NHL officials. So this whole season, the 2024-2025, has been the first season that they've been using it, but as you mentioned, this past weekend was the Red Wings and Blue Jackets outdoor game, if anybody cares, the Columbus 153. But this was the first time they used it in an outdoor game. So there's three main functions right now. It displays the game clock and jersey numbers of players in the penalty box. It's got a running penalty timer, and so that'll send like some haptics, some vibrations to the official's wrist so they don't have to like look down or look at a clock, when a power play is about to end, so they can keep their eyes on the game. And then the watch also alerts officials to when the clock is ticking down at the end of a period, as you mentioned. So there's haptic notifications for that. I think they get it at like 10 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 and 1 seconds left. So the penalty box and game clock haptics are different types of vibrations, so they know which one is which. But what's really cool is that it's pulling, like right now, it's pulling, I think, about 25 data points from the NHL's Oasis feed. So this is like the league's NHL edge puck and player tracking system. So this is a whole data aggregate. So this is really clutch because it's pulling that data rather than pushing the notifications. So essentially it's decreasing lag time between what's actually happening on the ice and then what's being delivered to the watch. And then on top of that, instead of relying on, say, like your in arena or weekend's case in stadium Wi-Fi, which could be crazy, the watch, they use cellular connectivity. So there's also a really huge adoption rate, you guys. So like almost every single ref is like over 92 or 93% are already wearing them. Not just refs, but refs and linesmen.
So it's not compulsory. They just decide if they want to or not.
Yeah, it's not compulsory yet. But wait, Sarah. So the reason that the other percentage isn't wearing them yet is because they're waiting on custom watch bands. It's not because they're like, no, I don't want to do this tech. Like, I think they're all game for it. It's just they want that customized band. And I don't know, I'm being facetious about it. I'm sure it's probably customized more for like the physical activity that they're doing. They're not going out with like a blinged watch band.
Make sure they don't sweat.
It's not like
it's not like rhinestoned.
Right. You don't want to rust.
Hockey band.
They
need bling, you know. Some players wear necklaces.
The Stanley Cup and jewels on it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They want it etched with how many games they've done. No, I don't know. So I figure it's probably more like function for them, but that's essentially who the holdouts are. So like that's how it's being used right now. But there's this whole like future of how they want to be using it, which is kind of the real discussion that I think is even more exciting, because part of the NHL Edge system tracks stick and limb movements of players during the game. So this is kind of what they're working on. Like the data isn't available publicly yet because they're still making sure that, of course, it's consistent arena to arena. And then obviously we want to make sure accuracy is there. But if/once that all happens and they get it all dialed in, the NHL WatchComs app might be able to alert an official that a puck has been contacted by a high stick. So sounds like basic, but essentially I'm seeing this as it could take out a lot of the judgment calls, because like players are different sizes. So you're judging based on where you are on the ice, where he's on the ice. Is he 5'11"? Is he 6'2"? Is that stick above his shoulder as opposed to this guy's shoulder? So like if we can just get like more accuracy dialed in, the game's already so fast, it's going to make the game even faster, because you're not going to be like, what was that call? Or did I get that call wrong? Or do we think that was a high stick or not? Let's call Toronto. You know, like it's just like, it's going to help the game tremendously. And then there's also been discussion about if watches could eventually alert officials to like pucks getting shot in the netting behind goals. Like sometimes that can get missed in arenas and stuff. So like, think of if this progresses even further, and now pretend that this is like puck crossing a line.
Yeah, right.
And if your watch could, right? If their watches could tell them that, okay, so now you can be like, no, we have actual data that the puck fully crossed the line. This is a good goal, without having to waste time and do calls, or like, you know, if you're talking about penalties or missed calls or anything. What if in the future too, which is what they're also hoping, is this isn't going to stay just for on-ice officials, because their other future plans are, what about the people making the calls in Toronto? What about refs that aren't on ice? What about the coaches, you guys? Because like right now you can do a whole coaches challenge if you don't like the call, and then you get a penalty like if you're wrong and you challenged and you shouldn't have challenged. So now this could take that guesswork out. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
it's
it's great. There's always the backlash of like, yeah, but the judgment call is part of the game, and it's only part of the game because it's been part of the game. You know what I mean? Like when the game was brand new,
right?
They weren't saying like, let's build in some judgment calls. They were like trying to say, no, let's try to get as accurate as possible, and that's what this technology lets us do. I think that's great.
It's huge, and also like in terms of safety, like some refs have already talked about this, but even just now what the WatchComs app has in terms of like telling them when a player is about to like exit a penalty box, as an example, it's like they're clipping, man. Like they want back on that ice. You don't want to be in the line of that.
Yeah.
Like this guy's clipping at however miles an hour, and like for your own safety as an official, but also like you don't want to be in the way of the play. You don't want to injure a player. Like we don't need another reason to boo refs, okay? We have enough.
And collisions aren't frequent, but they can happen.
They happen.
and they take the official away from watching the game when they're trying to make sure they don't collide, even if they don't collide. So that's another reason to be like, oh, I know to stay away from the penalty box. I can focus on what the action in the game.
And that's why this is going to be so huge. Is just, I think, like a game that's already super fast, it's going to get faster because there's not going to be a ton of what was this call, judgment calls, and then back and forth arguing calls. Like, this is already the best sport in the whole world. Don't challenge me on it. It's going to get even better and faster. And because, as we know, the players keep getting faster, any type of safety we can put in on top of that is huge. And also just with the haptics, and again, like these officials not having to look up and find, like last weekend's outdoor game. I'm really curious to see what the data they've provided on that is through the WatchComms app, because, like they were saying, like every stadium is like a different size. Sometimes it's bright out. There's a sun glare. The clock is in a different spot. They're looking for these things as opposed to watching what's happening. You miss a hooking call or you miss something. So like all of this just makes it safer for the players, safer for the officials, faster, which I'm so excited. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, do you guys think of any other cool ways? Like, I just can't imagine, because this is like, was it 2017 when the iPads were introduced behind the bench? So this has been now, like we're making these new iterations. So like, I think I'm excited to see it moving in the terms of like good goal, bad goal would be like huge.
And hockey is very, hockey is its own sport that feels just perfect for this. I'm going to assume that in the future, all refs, whether they're wearing Apple Watches or some other technology, that some other company decides to pay for, it'll help precision, and it'll slow down we have to look at this.
We have to stop and look at this replay over and over. Did the post leave before the puck crossed the line? Let's go back and forth and back. It could just, the analysis will get reliable enough. You'll just know immediately on the watch. Nope, that's not a goal. The post left, the net was knocked off. No goal. Like you say, it just moves things along and makes it more accurate, right? Because before we did replays, it just meant calls were blown, and everybody would know it later, but that was just the way it was.
Right. Because, I mean, humans, as perfect as we think we are not.
Yeah. Well.
Can you believe it?
I would like, so I don't exactly know how this would work, but if there was some version of the WatchComms app for the NBA, I would like the watch to be able to say, nope, he pretended to get fouled.
Oh, he was shot from the stands. It didn't happen.
He did a flop, and that is egregious. And no, we're not doing this.
Computer vision algorithms could do that. They're like, we know like what an actual injury looks like versus acting. Like we can tell the difference.
And it circles the arena or the field or whatever you're playing,
and maybe
so you
even
get all
like
angles.
Understands velocity. Like, no, you didn't hit him. You didn't hit him.
Hand pass.
Barely brushed his shoulder, and he went down crying. Come on.
Yeah.
European football players, look out.
Well, Roger, I know you've been mulling over the idea of buying an extremely large lens for your smartphone. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, I have several extremely large lenses for my camera. But one of the things that came up at Mobile World Congress is Chinese firms Realme and Xiaomi are putting out concept devices that kind of marry the large lens that you find in a traditional mirrorless camera with interchangeable lens with your smartphone. Now, in the case of the Realme, it is literally just a big sensor that's exposed on the back of the phone, and then you take the lens and you clip it on like you would on a mirrorless camera. With the Xiaomi, it uses essentially an add-on that combines both the sensor and the lens into a single package that then you magnetically connect to the back of your phone, which is not unlike what Sony tried to do with the QX system 10 years ago with their smartphone system they were trying to integrate.
Motorola had some modular stuff that was similar too.
And they're both approaching it in different ways, but the idea is, how do we get better photography out of smartphones? And for the longest time, I've been on the side of just bring a camera with you, right? Just to deal with it. Your smartphones will never be that great for shooting photography, but smartphones are already connected. So if you want to do your social media post, if you want to do a little clip, if you want to do something where you want to integrate it all at one and quickly and not have to deal with transferring, this is actually a really good system. Now the question is, would you want to deal with lugging around a big lens that kind of enlarges your rather svelte phone? I don't know. I would try it. I doubt I would use it as often as I think I would, but I would definitely try it.
I mean, I think that when I first heard the story, I was like, oh, yeah, so you don't have to pack a camera along with your phone. But yes, you're packing something that's as large as a camera.
That's
if you're
3/4 of your camera.
Right, some really nice lenses. So it's not so much that you're saving space in your backpack. It's that you're harnessing the power of whatever phone that you're using. You know, if you have a mostly recent smartphone, it probably has a pretty great camera in there. I love this idea. I used to be with you, Roger, where I was like, nah, you know, that you gotta, you know, SLR, gotta do that. If you're really serious about photos, I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
Well, this is essentially the SLR part of the camera, just not the digital part of the camera, right? Because you're just attaching all the camera important parts and letting the phone do the processing. I think that is saving you some space, maybe not a lot, but it's saving you some.
And the real advantage that I see is again the integration, right? Your smartphone's already connected to all the stuff, all the apps that you're already going to use, whether it's an Instagram, it's Facebook, it's Reels, whatever, TikTok or whatever. It's already there, so you don't need to go through this laborious process of transferring it from your camera to your laptop and then uploading or whatever. Or in the case 8 years ago, they tried integrating full-fledged Android operating systems into cameras, you know, like, oh, we'll integrate it with Wi-Fi. It'll be just like a smartphone, except it's a camera. And it didn't really go over that well because it added a lot of complexity without the speed and the kind of fine-tuned controls that you get with a standard digital SLR or mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. But I'll be honest, this kind of splits the difference pretty well. I mean, the lens is probably going to be more expensive than the phone. But
we don't know prices on this stuff yet.
Yeah, but if I can take advantage of if they allow you to take advantage of your existing, whether you know it's the new whether it's an old Canon EF mount or the new R mount, I don't know. It's a great way to integrate a lot of money that you already spent.
So are you saying the play for you specifically is because you want to share the photo you've taken right away? Is that the whole point?
That's
just
the
bring
thing.
the body. Like, I don't understand. Like, if you're gonna lug a huge lens,
because
you know they have Wi-Fi built into some of these now, right? So you could just share it.
Yeah, I could, but it's not just sharing. It's also, hey, on an Android photo, it automatically uploads to the cloud when I'm done. I don't even have to think about it. There's that friction that seems very innocuous, that seems very trivial. But when I used to take my camera everywhere, it's like, well, no, I got to do this. Yeah, I would take 15, 20 minutes. It wasn't a big deal, but it's a big enough deal that it made it a hassle, and it ended up not doing much of it.
You've already got your phone in your hand from playing Monopoly. So now all you have to do is attach the lens to it. So it's so much more efficient.
Think of it, when you're in a social gathering, you would rather talk to the people at your high school reunion or whatever than you would like spending 10, 15 minutes trying to upload. It's like, well, you can do it after. But when is after, right? If you had a couple of rounds in you, you might be you might not be sober enough to do anything until the next day, and then you forgot you got to catch your flight. There's just this sort of simplicity to it.
They should, the PR team should lean on that angle of it. Like, you know how it is when you go to CES, right, my dog?
Get that photo quick.
Uh-huh.
I think if it's small enough, they should make like a telescope where it just collapses right down nice.
Well, there's a limit to what you can do, right? Before you lose. And they've tried this before, right? And one of the things they did in smartphones is they put the lenses on their side so they can make the focal length longer without actually making the phone thicker.
Yeah, they did that periscope lens thing, right?
But there's only so much you can do when you're trying to essentially get as much available light into a sensor. Now with the Realme, it's a 1-inch sensor, which isn't very big, but it's big by smartphone standards. With the Xiaomi, it's a micro 4/3 sensor, which is substantially bigger. Not as big as like what you would find on a full frame digital camera, but good enough that it's the same size that you would find on a Panasonic GH6 or GH7. And they're really solid. The advantage is... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were finished.
Oh, I was just saying the advantage is not just like the social media. If it's part of your job, if you're doing a red carpet and you need to get those photos to the guy or gal that's, behind the scenes that needs to post the page with all the pictures as soon as possible, it's a lot quicker this way.
Xiaomi's is really interesting too, because it is replacing the lens in the phone's camera. It's not attaching to the phone's camera.
Yeah.
It requires you to have a Xiaomi phone to use this lens, right? You're not going to use this with any other phone.
It is.
However, it's magnetically attached with 2 proprietary pins. So I wonder how stable that is. Like I'm sure it'll stay on. Like it's not just going to fall right off, but if you bump it hard enough, it'll come off. Whereas the Realme one locks in. It is over the Realme phone's lens too, so it's not adding as much as the Xiaomi one. So I can't tell which one of these I prefer. The Xiaomi one seems better, as in it's like got a full real lens stack in there, whereas the Realme one's adapting your phone's lens. But the Realme one seems to be a little more stable. It's not going to fall off, because I don't want to drop this thing if I'm
Well, this
paying
is the
for
thing
it.
with the Xiaomi. If you look at it, you're holding the once you attach a lens, you're holding the lens. The camera or the phone is just magnetically attached to the back of it. Now, what's interesting is to communicate, there's no connection between the phone physical to transfer that information.
For the
it does
Xiaomi
it through
one,
it does
Wi-Fi
it through
and Bluetooth,
lasers.
right?
Oh, no, lasers. It uses a laser communication system to communicate between the two. And it is, if you think about it, I remember doing red carpets 12 years ago, and I remember actually it was with Eileen. We were doing like a bunch of interviews, and what's his name from Community, the main guy, the actor that also did Talk Soup. We were
Joe
talking
McHale.
to him. Yeah, Joe McHale. We were talking to him, and Eileen had her little point and shoot camera, or not point and shoot, but it was a Sony camera with the lens on it, and he was really enamored because it was so small, but it was so quick to get all that there. And once you have it connected, have it streaming, have it automatically send, so you have a production pipeline that's sort of attuned to as quick and as fast as you can get it up onto the website. I think it would be pretty cool. I don't know. I think like I'm at San Diego Comic-Con every year, so.
Well, yeah, I'm with you, Roger. I think it's interesting to see what people will use it for.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And
wasn't that long ago where people were like, yeah, well, smartphone cameras. And then there was, I forget the name of the movie, a indie movie shot entirely on an iPhone, which was not even taking advantage of these types of lenses, and looked great.
Yeah, and I will stress again, these are just concepts. These are not shipping products. These are just things that they want to see how people react to.
If they're $7,000, maybe we'll all say, well,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah,
Let's go with that
I'll
mirrorless camera.
haul my $1,200 camera system with me.
Yeah. We also have an update on the America Moville partnership with Starlink coming direct from Dan Campos.
This February, América Móvil confirmed that it will not collaborate with SpaceX for satellite internet use to extend the coverage of its telecommunications services. The exploration of options was paused last October, and on February 10, Carlos Slim mentioned it in a press conference that the alliance would not move forward, a statement that was confirmed 2 days later by Daniel Hag, el CEO of América Móvil. The Mexican company announced an investment of $22 billion over the next 3 years to expand its infrastructure and avoid relying on third-party resources. América Móvil operates in 22 countries across Latin America and Eastern Europe. For more details on how this telecommunications business deal came to an end, check out this week's episode of Noticias de Tecnología Express. Back to you, amigos.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the on-the-ground reporting there. Kind of in the same ballpark, Eutelsat, which operates the OneWeb satellite constellation, is working to get some loans from the European Union to provide satellite connectivity to Ukraine. So a lot of competition in that space happening. It's interesting to watch.
Which is actually good because it benefits consumers in the end.
Is that what competition does?
I believe that is what my
Supposed to.
Econ 101 sort of tried to drill into me.
Okay.
I could be
Competition
wrong.
is
It's
good.
so many years ago.
Well, remember, it's not a competition for you, the best email, but we do want to hear your emails. So send us your comments, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com.
We also want Tasia Custode to be on the show more often because you're awesome. So let folks know what you've been up to since we saw you last in old 2024.
Besides taking magnesium? Oh boy. I'm still trucking along on my YouTube channel where I share a ton of tech tips, lots of Google focused tips and tactics, some AI tidbits in there. And I'm just at Tasia Custode on YouTube and on all the things. So find me there. And sometimes I'm an occasional podcaster with AI Name This Show and talk techie to me. Sometimes being the keyword.
It's all that magnesium. It's
It's all that magnesium. I'm just sleeping
You're
through
just
the day
sleeping.
now.
You're sleeping all the time. I mean, as podcasters, I think we can all
yeah.
relate to that sort of like sometimes it's occasional. Because life gets in the way.
Correct.
Yeah, magnesium is a hot trend these days.
I'm on the train. I'll let you know.
I mean, I
jumping
take
off or staying on.
CalMag vitamins, so
Yes, you should take magnesium with your calcium to help you digest it better. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I'm
You don't
doing
take them
it
right before the show,
without
do you?
even knowing.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm tired.
I don't take calcium. I eat a lot of yogurt. Is that good for calcium, or am I totally eating the wrong
Yogurt
That's
thing?
good for
can
calcium.
be.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. It's good for your gut.
I mean, some people have more of a calcium deficiency or
A cal deficiency. as we
reason
call it in the
to
biz.
consider that.
A
than
California
others.
deficiency.
Yes. If you're not in California, I mean, I don't know where you're getting your vitamin D. So
That's actually how I get my vitamin D. I walk out in the backyard with my shirt off for 10 minutes. And the doctor is like, your vitamin D levels are back to normal. You don't need to take a supplement anymore.
one of my neighbors down the street, Tom, does the same thing. Yep. Every morning, he's like, "Good morning, Sarah and Otis." As I'm walking my dog, I'm like,
I just
"Hello,
wanna make it
not
clear, I do
naked,
it
but almost naked."
In my backyard where no one can see me, not in my front yard where I'm waving hello to everyone passing by.
Imagine.
Does
Sarah,
that
you
work?
and I
D,
are
guys.
next.
Getting my vitamin D.
Does
Me
it
and
work?
Sarah,
if,
we gotta get our vitamin D. Let's
Gotta
go,
get the
girl.
vitamin D. It's the only way to do it.
I should. All this time I've been just going with shorts, but I guess I could go topless.
You can do it. Shorts help, but there's more surface area. You could do both. Shorts.
You gotta
and-
get
These
that
gams,
shoulder
it's about
D.
equal in my body.
Shoulder D.
Yeah, the back. A lot of surface area on the back. Well, we don't know ever what to call our shows, but thankfully we have an entire live audience that does. And during the show, they have been submitting title ideas at dtns.showbot.tv, starting with C-SPAN's Hasbro Tech Bro. It's the top vote getter right now.
That's funny.
It's almost like a musical. Hasbro Tech Bro. Batfig 2001. I'm more worried about the Dateline branded version of Clue.
Now that
Yeah.
sign me up.
And they never saw it coming.
Daily supplement chat show from Nick with a C is a good one. How to cheat while playing Monopoly from C-SPAN.
Like, I didn't know that was a thing for the
We'll
longest
just give
time.
everybody magnesium, and then you cheat all you want.
I thought the whole point of board games was to teach you how to follow the rules, like read and.
I mean, that is a thing you can do with board games, but that
Roger,
doesn't
it's,
mean everyone
it's as
does
if
it.
you've never heard of gambling.
I mean,
and
like
sports.
it's like cheating at the game of life, or was it family? The
Yes,
game of life.
people
with the
do that too.
Yes.
G. James B. I like this one. It's so thin. Let's add a 2-foot lens to it. GPEG 84, a master of titles with Breaking the Ice with Hockey Tech. Yeah.
Get it?
Breaking.
But also
Breaking
breaking.
away. Monopoly to Photography from Zoe Brings Bacon. It's a lens with a phone attached from G. James B. Custom watch face-offs.
That's a good play on words.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Batfink 2001. Sarah, what did we go with?
We had to stick with the hockey tech theme from JPEG84, breaking the ice with hockey tech.
Yay!
Thank you, JPEG84. Go Blues.
USA.
Go
USA.
Habs, go. Canada.
The international forum of our support is very much appreciated. So big thanks to everybody who watches us on LinkedIn, watches us and supports us on YouTube, and subscribes on Twitch. We've got people from all over the world helping us out on Twitch. Zoe Brings Bacon over there in the UK gave us some bits. Deo Dave 1982 gave us a follow. Razin resubscribed for the 39th month. Charlie in Columbus, where they were just holding the Stadium Series, resubscribed with Prime for the 64th month. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us however you do, including our patrons, patreon.com/DTNS.
Well, if you haven't watched this really fun show called Behind the Data, hosted by Andrea Jones-Roy, you are missing out, because data, for anybody who listens to DTNS Live, you would know, is pretty much shaping the world that we live in, has for some time, and there is no better way to understand it by listening to Behind the Data. It's a great show, examining what data sets say about what's happening in the world, what's happening in politics, what's happening with our health, and most importantly, why. Season 2 launching very soon, so check it out at behindthedatashow.com. Reminder, we are live on this show. You might not be watching or listening live, but you could. You could watch us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back tomorrow doing it all again with Scott Johnson joining us. Hope to see you there.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.